The small translator device hummed softly in the soldier's ear as he walked through the alien marketplace. The air smelled of strange fruits, smoke from cooking fires, and something sharp he could not name. Stalls lined the dusty road, filled with colors that did not exist on Earth, glowing fabrics, and metals that shimmered as if alive. The human moved carefully, his boots pressing into the ground that seemed to pulse faintly under each step. He trusted the translator to help him survive here, for without it, he would not understand a single word of the alien language. He had been warned the device was old. It flickered when he tested it, and sometimes the voices it played carried a faint echo, like two mouths speaking at once. But he had no choice. Alone in this alien city, every word mattered. If one sentence failed, if one phrase came out wrong, he could insult someone without even knowing. He pressed his hand against the small metal piece near his ear, whispering for it to stay steady, then lifted his eyes again. Alien faces turned as he passed. Some looked curious, some disgusted, and some even frightened. He was taller than most, his skin pale compared to theirs. The aliens were scaled, skin smooth like polished stone, with dark eyes that glowed faintly in the sunlight. Their voices were deep and sharp, filled with strange clicks that the translator twisted into rough English. Human, some of them whispered. Others just stared. He kept walking, trying to appear calm. He wanted no trouble, but he knew humans were rare here. Few had walked these streets. The wrong look could mean danger. He stopped at a stall, pointing at a strange fruit glowing with blue light. The merchant hissed a greeting, and the translator buzzed in his ear. Sweet, eat, safe for your kind. The words were broken, but close enough. The soldier smiled, trying to be polite, and handed over a small coin of trade metal. But as the merchant passed the fruit, the translator cracked with static. The alien's next words came out twisted. Eat with honor, human, or dishonor our queen. The soldier froze. He had only asked the price, but the device had turned it into something dangerous. Around him, a few aliens had stopped to listen. Their eyes narrowed. He shook his head quickly, waving his hands. No, I only meant. But the translator buzzed again. His words came out wrong, carrying insults he never spoke. No, your queen is nothing. Worthless. Gasps filled the air. The crowd thickened, whispers spreading fast. The soldier's heart pounded as he realized the device was betraying him. He tried again, speaking slower, but the device twisted his voice once more. I am better than your warriors. I spit on your honor. The alien stiffened. A tall figure stepped from the crowd. She was different from the rest, armor strapped across her chest, a long weapon at her side, and eyes burning like fire. The crowd bowed slightly as she passed. A warrior. No, not just a warrior, the daughter of the queen herself. Her name whispered through the crowd like thunder, carried on sharp breaths and hushed awe. She stood before the human, her gaze sharp enough to cut. You insult us, the translator whispered in his ear, turning her deep voice into something cold. You insult me. The soldier's mouth went dry. He opened his lips to explain, but he knew the device could not be trusted. Still, he tried. It's a mistake. I didn't say that. The translator twisted again. It is no mistake. You are weak, and I mock you. The warrior's jaw tightened. Around her, the crowd stirred, their eyes glowing brighter in anger. The soldier's breath caught. He wanted to rip the translator out of his ear, crush it beneath his boot, but without it, he would be deaf in this world. He would not survive a single day. Yet with it, every word became a weapon against him. The warrior stepped closer. Her hand brushed the hilt of her weapon, but she did not draw it yet. Her voice came low, dangerous, as the device hummed in his ear. If you insult me before my people, you must answer with blood or with bond. The human did not understand. Bond? What bond? He swallowed hard, his heartbeat hammering in his chest. He tried once more, desperate. Please, I mean no harm. But the device twisted his voice again. To the alien crowd, his words came out as, please, I claim you. Gasps rose again, louder this time, almost like a roar. The warrior's eyes widened, but not in shock. No, it was rage. Her people whispered fiercely, some laughing, some shouting, all waiting for her answer. To them, the human had just spoken the forbidden words, the ancient claim of a mate. A claim only spoken in ritual, a claim no outsider could ever say. The human's stomach dropped. He had no idea what he had done, but the crowd believed it. The faulty device, his only link to survival, had turned his simple plea into a sentence that could not be taken back. He saw it in their faces. He saw it in her burning eyes. The marketplace felt smaller now, the walls of alien bodies closing in, their whispers growing sharp as knives. The warrior stepped even closer, so near that he could see the faint silver lines painted across her skin, marks of her caste. Her voice was low but strong, and the translator buzzed one last time in his ear. "You have spoken the words. You will not take them back. By our law, you are bound. And the cost will be your life or my virginity." The soldier's breath caught. He wanted to shout that it was a lie, that he never said it, that the device betrayed him. But the crowd would not listen. They had already decided, and in their eyes, he saw only hunger for what came next. The warrior girl stood in the center of the marketplace, her sharp eyes fixed on the human. The crowd pressed in closer, their whispers like a storm, their excitement growing with every passing second. They had heard the forbidden words from his mouth, and now their law demanded action. In their world, no insult to honor could go unanswered. The human felt his throat tighten. He had not spoken those words, but the translator betrayed him. He tried to step back, but the crowd would not let him. Every alien face glowed with expectation, eager to see how the warrior girl would answer his so-called claim. The warrior's hand rested on the hilt of her blade. The weapon gleamed in the dim light, polished and deadly. She did not draw it yet. Instead, she pointed at the human and spoke with a voice that rang clear, a voice that carried power. The translator hummed, twisting her words into English. "You insult me before my people. You insult my honor. There are only two paths left for you, human. You fight me, or you bond with me." The words hit the human like a hammer. Fight her? Bond with her? He did not even understand what bonding meant in this alien culture. He shook his head quickly, trying to explain, but again his device betrayed him. Instead of saying, "I don't understand," the device spat out, "I will defeat you easily." Gasps broke out in the crowd. A wave of laughter and shouts rolled through the aliens, echoing off the stone walls of the marketplace. Some of them stomped their feet, chanting for blood. Others cried out, demanding the bond. The warrior's eyes flared, her nostrils widening as if she smelled battle in the air. She stepped forward until she stood only a few steps away from him. The human felt his heartbeat thundering in his chest. He knew he could not defeat her in combat. She was taller, stronger, trained from birth to fight. Her armor clung to her body like a second skin, and the long blade at her side seemed to hum with deadly promise. If he fought her, he would die in front of everyone. But the second choice felt just as dangerous. To bond, whatever that meant, was not something he wanted. It carried weight in their culture. From the whispers around him, he understood it meant giving up his freedom, submitting to her, and being tied to her forever in a way he could not even imagine. He could see the mocking smiles of the crowd, their hungry stares. They wanted to see him humbled. They wanted to see him broken. The warrior raised her hand, silencing the crowd. Her voice came again, sharp and proud. "Choose, human. Fight me with your blood, or bond with me before the eyes of my people." The crowd grew quiet. All eyes turned to him. His palms were sweating, his throat dry. He wanted to scream that it was a mistake, that the device was broken, but the aliens would not believe him. To them, words spoken in their tongue were binding. A claim made in public could not be taken back. He tried once more. He raised his hand, shaking it wildly, and shouted, "It's wrong! The device is broken!" But the translator hissed and twisted his desperate cry. In their ears, his words became, "Your laws are nothing to me. I will not back down." The crowd exploded in noise, half of them chanting for the fight, the other half demanding the bond. The warrior stepped even closer, her shadow falling over him. She looked into his eyes, studying him, as if trying to see whether he was brave or simply foolish. For a long moment, she did not speak. Then she drew her blade slowly, the metal ringing as it left the sheath. The crowd roared in approval. The human's stomach dropped. She held the blade to her side, pointing its tip toward the ground, and said, "If you choose combat, you will bleed here and now. If you choose bond, you will walk with me to the temple, and before my mother, the queen, you will seal the claim you spoke." The human felt the world spinning around him. His legs wanted to run, but he knew he could not escape. He was surrounded. Aliens filled the marketplace, shoulder to shoulder, leaving no path to freedom. He clenched his fists, trying to calm his panic. He thought about fighting. about grabbing some weapon and striking, but he knew the truth. He would not last even 1 minute against her. The crowd grew restless as he stayed silent. They shouted louder, their glowing eyes burning into him. Some stomped their feet, others hissed and growled, calling him a coward. The warrior's gaze never left his face. She waited, patient and deadly, her body tense like a predator ready to strike. He opened his mouth one last time, forcing the words out slowly, carefully, hoping the translator would not twist them again. I mean no insult. I never claimed you. But the device betrayed him once more. The words came out as, I accept. I claimed you once, and I will claim you again. The crowd erupted in chaos. Shouts, cheers, laughter, and cries shook the air. Some slammed their hands together, others shouted blessings, and a few even mocked him loudly. The warrior's eyes burned brighter, her lips curling into something between a snarl and a smile. She raised her blade high, then suddenly slammed it back into its sheath. You have chosen, she said firmly, her voice cutting through the noise. You have chosen bond. The crowd roared. The sound shook the walls and rattled the air. Some chanted her name, others clapped their hands. The human stood frozen, his body stiff, his heart hammering so loud it drowned out everything else. He had not chosen anything. The device had chosen for him. And now, before the entire marketplace, he was bound to a warrior girl he had just met, a girl who hated him for the insult he never gave. The warrior turned sharply, her long hair whipping in the air. Come, human, she commanded. We go to the temple. The crowd parted as she walked, making a clear path. They watched him closely, their whispers sharp as knives. He had no way out. With every step, he realized his life was no longer his own. One mistranslated word had sealed his fate. The human followed the warrior girl through the marketplace, the crowd pressing close on every side. The air was thick with heat, smoke, and the low rumble of alien voices. He could feel their eyes burning into him, hundreds of glowing stares watching his every move. The whisper of his name, human, moved like a wave through the gathering. Some voices carried laughter, others sharp anger, and others a kind of hunger, as if they could not wait to see how this story ended. The warrior walked ahead of him, her back straight, her armor gleaming in the fading light. Every step she took was sure and strong, the ground seeming to shake beneath her boots. She did not once look back at him. The crowd parted for her as if she were a river cutting through stone. They respected her, feared her, and wanted to see what she would do with him. To them, he was no longer just a traveler, no longer just a stranger buying fruit. He was the outsider who had dared to claim her in public. The human's throat was dry. He tried to keep his step steady, but inside he was trembling. He could feel sweat on his palms, on his neck, even though the air had grown cool. Every whisper seemed louder than the last. He caught words like trial, bond, and temple. He did not know what those words meant exactly, but the way the alien said them made his chest tighten with fear. He knew one thing clearly: there was no escape. As they walked, more and more aliens joined the procession. What had started as a marketplace crowd was turning into a parade of witnesses. Children with wide, glowing eyes darted between legs to get a better view. Old warriors leaned on their staffs, muttering to each other with sharp clicks of their tongues. Young fighters cheered, slapping their weapons against their armor. The air was electric, filled with excitement and tension. Everyone wanted to see the human's fate. He touched the small translator in his ear, whispering, "Work, damn you, just work right." But the device only gave a soft crackle, like a dying insect. It betrayed him at every word. He could not trust it anymore, yet he needed it. Without it, he was deaf in this world, cut off completely. He clenched his teeth and forced himself forward. The warrior finally stopped at a wide circle of stone in the center of the city. The crowd spread around them, forming a wall of bodies. Their glowing eyes lit up the dusk, turning the place into something unreal, as if he had stepped into another world entirely. The circle of stone was cracked with old lines, symbols carved deep into it. It felt ancient, a place where many such trials had happened before. The warrior turned to him at last. Her gaze was sharp, her eyes burning with something more than anger: pride, duty, and a hunger to prove herself. She raised her hand, and instantly the crowd grew silent. Even the children hushed, their glowing eyes locked on the human. She spoke, her voice carrying clearly. The translator buzzed in his ear. broken but still enough for him to understand the meaning. This human has spoken the words of claim. In front of my people, he declared me his. By our law, there can be no retreat. He must fight me, or bond with me before the queen. A wave of sound rushed through the crowd. Some shouted for blood, their fists pounding against their chests. Others cried out for the bond, their voices rising in chants. The human's ears rang with their cries. He looked around, desperate for some friendly face, but there was none. Every alien eye was filled with fire, with expectation. He wanted to scream that it was not true, that he never said those words. But he knew what would happen. The device would twist his cry into another insult, another false claim. He pressed his lips together, his chest tight. Silence was the only weapon left to him. Yet silence also made him look weak. The warrior stepped closer, her shadow falling over him. She was taller than him by a head, her armor clinking softly as she moved. She looked into his eyes and tilted her head, studying him like a hunter studies prey. For a brief second, her gaze softened, almost curious, as if she wondered why he did not tremble, why he did not collapse under the weight of the crowd's fury. But then her face hardened again. The crowd began to chant her name. It rose from hundreds of throats, echoing through the stone streets, pounding against his ears. They chanted for their champion, their princess, their warrior. The sound shook him to his core. He was one man, one stranger, standing alone against a world that wanted to see him fall. He tried to think. Fighting meant death. Bonding meant chains he could not see. Both paths were traps, and both had been forced on him by one small machine that could not even carry a word without breaking it. His fists clenched at his sides. He had survived wars, storms, and hunger before, but now his fate hung on a language he did not even speak. The warrior raised her arms to the crowd, her voice rising like thunder. "Let the people witness," the translator whispered in his ear. "This human's choice will decide his honor and mine." The crowd roared, stamping their feet, their glowing eyes blazing like fire in the night. The human's heart raced, his mind spinning. He felt the stone beneath his boots, the eyes upon his skin, the weight of 1,000 voices pressing him down. He could not run. He could not explain. He could only stand, trapped in a circle of judgment, waiting for a choice that was no choice at all. And somewhere deep inside him, a small spark flickered. He would not let them break him so easily. If his fate was already sealed, he would face it standing tall. He lifted his head, met the warrior's blazing eyes, and locked his jaw. The crowd gasped, for in that small act of defiance, they saw something they had not expected. The human was not trembling. He was not begging. He was ready. The queen arrived when the drums began to sound. The air in the stone circle grew heavier, every alien lowering their head as the tall figure stepped into view. Her body was wrapped in layered armor made of black stone and silver plates, her crown sharp like jagged fangs. Her eyes glowed brighter than the torches, cutting through the crowd with the weight of command. The warrior girl dropped to one knee, bowing before her mother, while the rest of the crowd fell into silence. The human stood frozen, his heart hammering as he realized he was now standing before the highest authority in this world. The queen's gaze shifted to him, cold and sharp, as though she could see straight through his skin into his soul. She said nothing at first, letting the silence burn longer, making the human feel smaller under her stare. Then her voice rolled out like thunder, deep and echoing, carrying the weight of law. The translator hummed and stuttered, but the message was clear enough. "My daughter has been insulted. My people demand justice. The words of claim were spoken. Our law cannot be broken." The crowd erupted in a cheer, stamping their feet, calling for punishment. The human shook his head quickly, his mouth dry. He wanted to shout again that it was all a mistake, but he feared the device would twist his voice into another insult, another claim he never made. His chest burned with frustration, his hands clenched at his sides, helpless against the machine that betrayed him. The queen lifted one arm and the noise died instantly. She turned to her daughter, her voice firm. "You know our law. His fate lies with you. Choose the path. Will you claim his blood in combat or accept the bond he has spoken?" The warrior girl rose to her feet, her eyes fixed on the human. Her jaw was tight, her chest rising and falling with sharp breaths. For a moment, she said nothing. The crowd leaned closer, eager for her answer. Then she spoke, her voice carrying both anger and pride. "He insulted me. He insulted my honor. But he also spoke the words no outsider should ever know. By law, he is mine. I will not kill him. I will claim him. The crowd roared with shock and excitement, some cheering wildly, others shouting in protest. The human's stomach dropped as the translator whispered the words in his ear. Claim him? His blood ran cold. He had no choice now. The queen's daughter had chosen the bond. The queen's expression did not change, but her glowing eyes narrowed. She studied her daughter carefully, as though weighing her resolve. Then she nodded once, and her voice boomed again. Then the bond will be sealed. The temple awaits. Before the ancestors, you will give yourself to him, and he to you. Let the people witness, for the law is unbreakable. The human's mind spun wildly. The words hit him like stones, heavy and merciless. Temple, bond, give yourself. He did not understand everything, but he understood enough. His throat tightened. This was not just a ceremony of words. This was something deeper, something physical and irreversible. His stomach twisted with dread. The warrior girl stepped closer, her eyes burning into him. He saw hatred there, but also something else, duty. She did not want this any more than he did, but she would not dishonor her people by refusing. Her pride was iron, her honor sharper than any blade. She spoke again, loud enough for all to hear. He will walk beside me to the temple. There, I will take his claim and make it true. The law demands it. The human's chest pounded. His mouth opened, desperate to protest, but the device betrayed him again. His words came out twisted and wrong. Instead of saying, please, I never meant this, the crowd heard, yes, I take her. She is mine. The marketplace exploded with laughter and cheers. Some slapped their hands together. Others shouted his name in mocking tones. The warrior girl's face hardened even more. She turned sharply, pointing toward the high towers where the temple stood. Come, human, she ordered. The law binds you now. He wanted to resist, but strong hands grabbed his arms from the crowd, pushing him forward. The aliens laughed and hissed, their glowing eyes filled with excitement as they forced him toward his fate. He stumbled, his boots scraping against the stone, his body moving not by his own will, but by theirs. The noise of the crowd followed him like thunder, rising and falling in waves of chants and mocking cries. The queen did not move from her place, but her gaze followed him like a shadow. Her voice rang out one last time, final and unyielding. By the time the sun rises, my daughter will not be a virgin. The human's words cannot be taken back. Let all witness. Let the law be fulfilled. The human's stomach twisted in horror. His head spun. This could not be happening. One broken device had twisted his words, and now his life, his freedom, even his dignity, was slipping away. The warrior walked in front of him, her steps steady, her body rigid like stone. Behind them, the crowd surged, eager to see what would happen in the temple. He felt trapped in a nightmare, walking towards something he could not stop. His heart raced faster with every step up the stone path. He had faced death before, on battlefields and in dark corners of the galaxy. But this was different. Death was clean. This was something else, something humiliating, something permanent. A chain that would never break. Yet even through the fear, a small fire burned inside him. He clenched his fists, his jaw tight. They had forced him into this. They had twisted his voice, stolen his choice, and crushed his freedom. But if he had no escape, he would not go quietly. One way or another, he would make them see the truth. The drums beat louder as the temple gates came into view, towering above them, carved with strange symbols that glowed in the torchlight. The crowd roared, their voices echoing like a storm. The warrior did not look back. The human kept walking, each step heavier than the last, each breath sharp with dread. The faulty device had failed him at the worst time. And now, before the queen, the warrior, and an entire people, it had written his fate in stone. The torches inside the temple burned with blue fire, casting tall shadows on the stone walls. Strange carvings of warriors, battles, and sacred unions stared down at the human as he was pushed inside. The air was heavy with incense, bitter and sharp, making his head spin. Behind him, the crowd stopped at the temple steps, their chanting and laughter echoing faintly through the open doors. Only a few chosen witnesses followed, the elders, the queen, and guards in dark armor. The place felt ancient, as though thousands of lives had been bound and broken here before him. The warrior girl walked ahead, her boots striking hard against the stone floor. She did not look at him. Her jaw was tight, her back straight, as if her whole body was made of steel. The human could feel the weight of her pride pressing down on him. She did not want him. He could see it in her eyes when she glanced back briefly. Anger, shame, and duty, all fighting together inside her. She had not chosen this with her heart. She was chained by law just as much as he was. The queen moved to the front of the temple, standing beside an altar carved with silver lines that glowed faintly. She raised her hand, and the guards forced the human to step closer. He stumbled but caught himself, lifting his head. His fists were clenched tight, his teeth grinding together. He refused to kneel. He would not give them the satisfaction of seeing him broken. The queen's voice rolled like thunder in the chamber. The translator in his ear buzzed with static, but the meaning came through. By the words he spoke, the bond must be sealed. My daughter will give her honor, and he will give his seed. The ancestors watch, and the law binds them. The human's chest burned with rage. He opened his mouth, shouting, "I never said that!" But the cursed device betrayed him once again. To the aliens, his voice came out as, "Yes, I take her now. She is mine forever." The temple filled with approving growls and chants. Some of the elders slammed their staffs on the floor, sparks flying from the silver lines of the altar. The warrior girl turned her head toward him slowly, her eyes wide with fury. For a moment, it looked like she would strike him down where he stood. But then her lips pressed into a hard line, and she faced the altar again. Her voice was clear, cold, and proud. "I accept. Let it be done." The queen nodded, raising her hands. The silver lines of the altar flared with light, bathing the temple in an unearthly glow. The guards released the human, stepping back, but their glowing eyes stayed on him, ready to strike if he resisted. He felt his heart hammering so hard it echoed in his ears. His body screamed at him to run, but there was nowhere to go. The heavy doors behind him were closed, and spears blocked the path. He was trapped. The warrior girl stepped closer to him, the glow of the altar shining on her face. She looked younger now, her anger edged with fear. Her lips trembled slightly before she forced them still. She whispered, her voice so low the translator could barely catch it. "Do not shame me. If you resist, they will kill you." The words stabbed him deeper than any blade. She did not want this either. She was as much a prisoner of the law as he was, but her pride would not let her show weakness before her people. Her eyes begged him to understand, even as her face stayed hard and proud. The queen's voice thundered again. "The bond begins." The elders struck their staffs once more, and the silver glow spread across the floor, crawling like liquid light toward the human's feet. He felt a strange heat rising through his boots, into his legs, into his chest. It was as if the temple itself was swallowing him, tying him to this alien woman. His breath came fast, panic rising. He wanted to scream, to fight, to tear the cursed translator from his ear. He lifted his hand toward it, but one of the guards hissed and raised his spear. He froze, his hand trembling in the air. Slowly, he let it fall back to his side. The warrior girl stood so close now that he could feel the heat of her skin through her armor. Her eyes met his, a storm of fury and desperation. She whispered again, so soft that even the device struggled. "Stand strong. If they think you are weak, they will never let you go." He swallowed hard, his chest tight with helplessness. The glow of the altar climbed higher, wrapping around his body like chains. His knees wanted to buckle, but he locked them stiff. He would not fall. If they forced him into this, he would face it with steel in his spine. The queen stepped down from the altar, her presence like a shadow swallowing the room. She raised her hand toward her daughter. "Give yourself, child of mine. Let the bond seal. Your honor demands it." The warrior girl's lips parted slightly, her breath sharp. For the first time, her mask cracked. He saw fear in her eyes, just for a heartbeat, before she forced it away. She turned to him, her hand reaching slowly toward his chest. The crowd of witnesses leaned forward, every glowing eye burning with hunger. The temple seemed to hold its breath. The human's fists tightened until his knuckles turned white. His mind screamed that this was wrong, that he should fight, resist, scream the truth until someone listened. But deep inside, a small voice whispered that if he fought here, he would not live to see the morning. His only chance was to survive this moment. The warrior's hand pressed against his chest. The silver light flared, exploding around them in blinding brilliance. The witnesses roared, the temple shaking with their cries. The queen lifted her hands high, her voice echoing, "The bond is sealed." The human's breath caught in his throat. His body felt hot, as though fire ran through his veins. The device in his ear hummed once, then went silent. For the first time since he had arrived, he heard nothing but the raw alien voices echoing around him. He could not understand the words anymore, but he did not need to. He could feel it. The bond was real, alive, and unbreakable. The warrior girl pulled her hand back quickly, her eyes refusing to meet his. She turned away, her shoulders stiff, her pride unbroken before her people. The crowd cheered wildly, their voices rising like thunder. The queen smiled coldly, satisfied. The human stood in the glow of the altar, his chest still burning, his heart heavier than stone. The law had chained him to her forever, and there was no way back. The temple doors closed with a heavy sound, and the chants of the crowd outside faded into the distance. Only a few torches burned now, their blue flames casting long shadows across the walls. The human stood in the center of the chamber, his body still hot from the strange light of the altar. His chest felt heavy, like invisible chains had wrapped around him. He clenched his fists, forcing himself to breathe slowly, refusing to collapse even though every muscle trembled. The warrior girl stood across from him, her back turned, her hand resting against one of the stone pillars. Her shoulders rose and fell quickly, as if she too was fighting for control. For the first time, without the crowd's eyes on her, the mask of her pride slipped a little. She did not speak, not right away. The silence between them was thick, broken only by the crackle of fire. Finally, she turned. Her eyes were softer now, though still filled with storm. She looked at him, really looked at him, as if searching for something beyond the mistake that had brought them here. Her lips parted, and for the first time her words came without the roar of command. "You did not want this." The translator buzzed faintly in his ear, but the words were clear. The human swallowed hard. He shook his head. "No, never. It was the device. It twisted everything." His voice cracked with anger and exhaustion. The cursed translator carried his meaning, though broken, but she seemed to understand. Her gaze hardened again, but there was no hatred now, only bitterness. "And yet the bond is sealed. My people saw it. My mother declared it. You are tied to me until death." He pressed his hand to his chest, feeling the lingering heat there, as though the glow of the altar still lived under his skin. He wanted to scream, to break free, to tear down the temple walls with his bare hands. But instead, he forced himself to stand tall. His jaw clenched. "I never asked for this, but if your people think I will kneel, they are wrong." Something flickered in her eyes, surprise. She took a slow step toward him, her armor clinking softly. "You are a fool," she said. "Others would beg. Others would fall to the ground and cry for mercy. But you stand." His lips curled into a bitter smile. "Because I've lost too much already. If I fall here, then I lose myself too." The warrior's gaze locked onto his, burning with something new. For the first time, the fury in her eyes mixed with respect. She was still bound by anger, still chained by law, but she could not deny the strength she saw in him. She stepped even closer, her voice low. "You shame me and honor me at the same time. I do not know whether to strike you or trust you." The human's heart pounded. The air between them grew tense, heavy. He wanted to push her away, to escape the weight of her people's law, but a strange pull kept him still. The bond burned faintly in his chest, a reminder that even if neither of them had chosen this, something now connected them. The sound of boots echoed through the chamber. Guards entered, their armor dark, their spears glinting in the firelight. They bowed slightly to the warrior and then turned to the human. One spoke in a low growl, the translator buzzing as it caught the words. "The queen commands. You will be taken to the chambers. Tonight, the bond must be completed." The human stiffened, his chest tightening. He glanced at the warrior girl, but she looked away, her jaw tight. For a heartbeat, he saw something flicker across her face. Fear. Then it was gone, replaced again by the mask of duty. She nodded once to the guards. "Leave us. He is mine now." The guards hesitated but obeyed, stepping back out of the chamber and pulling the doors closed again. The silence returned, heavier than before. The human turned to her sharply. "You can't let this happen." His voice was hard, urgent. "You know the truth. That device twisted my words. If you say it, if you tell them." Her eyes snapped to his, sharp as blades. "If I tell them I dishonor myself, my people will call me weak. They will strip me of my rank. My mother will see me as unworthy. And you, she stopped, her voice trembling for a second before she forced it steady. You will be executed as a liar. Do you want that? He opened his mouth but closed it again. The weight of her words sank deep. She was trapped just as he was. For her, the bond was not a victory. It was a cage. She had been forced to claim him to keep her honor, just as he had been forced to accept to stay alive. They stood in silence for a long time, staring at each other, two prisoners tied by one cruel mistake. Finally, she whispered, so soft it was almost lost in the crackle of fire. I do not want this, but the law does not care what we want. The human's fists loosened slowly. He stepped closer, his voice low but firm. Then let me make you a promise. I may be bound, but I will never be broken, and if there is a way to turn this fate, I will find it. Her eyes widened slightly, surprise breaking through her mask once more. She studied him carefully, searching his face for lies, but all she found was steel. Slowly, her lips pressed into a thin line, and she gave a small nod. For the first time, something shifted between them. Not trust, not friendship, but the faint spark of understanding. Both were trapped, both hated the chain around their necks, but neither would bow to it easily. The temple torches burned lower, the blue flames flickering against the stone walls. The human and the warrior girl stood in silence, caught between anger and something far more dangerous. The bond tied them together, but how they carried it, that choice was still theirs. The first light of dawn spilled through the temple windows, painting the stone floor with pale gold. The human sat against one of the pillars, his body stiff, his eyes heavy but awake. He had not slept. The bond burned faintly in his chest all night, like an ember he could not put out. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the crowd, the queen's cold gaze, and the warrior girl's proud face. He was bound to her now, in the eyes of her people, even if he never chose it. The warrior girl stood near the altar, her armor removed, dressed in simple robes of her people. She had not spoken much through the night. Her silence was heavy, but not empty. She was thinking, fighting battles inside herself just as he was. When she finally turned to him, her eyes carried something different, no longer only anger, no longer only duty. There was a weight there, yes, but also a question, unspoken. You did not bend, she said at last. Her voice was low, steady. Most would have begged, but you did not. Even when the bond sealed, you stood. The human gave a tired smile, though it did not reach his eyes. If I give them that, then they win twice. First they take my words, then they take my spirit. I won't let that happen. Her gaze lingered on him, studying him in silence. She walked closer, her bare feet silent against the cold stone. My people will never see it that way. To them, you are mine. To them, you belong. His jaw tightened. He rose to his feet slowly, standing tall despite the ache in his body. He stepped closer to her, their eyes locking. Maybe to them, but not to me. Inside, I still belong to myself, and maybe one day I'll prove it to them too. Her lips pressed together. She wanted to argue, to remind him that their laws were unbreakable. But when she looked into his eyes, she saw something she could not dismiss. Iron will. Something she had not seen even in the strongest of her people. It unsettled her, yet it also sparked a strange pull in her chest. The temple doors creaked open, and the queen entered with her guards. Her steps were slow, deliberate, her crown catching the light of dawn. She looked at her daughter first, then at the human. Her glowing eyes narrowed. It is done. The people will accept the bond. You belong to her now. Your place is by her side. Fail her, and you die. Defy her, and you die. The human felt his blood boil, but he forced his voice steady. I belong to no one. The translator caught his words and carried them into their tongue. The guards tensed, some reaching for their weapons, but the queen only tilted her head, her cold smile sharp as a blade. Brave words, empty words, you will learn. She turned to her daughter. Keep him close. He is your burden now, and your weapon if you can control him. Then she left as suddenly as she had entered, the doors closing behind her. The human stood still, his fists tight, his breath sharp. He hated her smile, hated the way she looked at him as if he were already broken. The warrior girl stepped closer. Her voice dropped low, for his ears alone. You should not have said that. One day it will cost you. He turned to her, his eyes burning with quiet fire. Maybe, but if I don't say it, then I am already lost. For a moment, silence hung between them. Then, to his surprise, she gave the faintest hint of a smile. Small, almost hidden, but real. You are either very strong or very foolish. He smirked, despite himself. Maybe both. That brief flicker of something between them broke quickly as the sound of drums echoed outside. The crowd was gathering again, eager to see the bonded pair. The warrior straightened, her face becoming the mask of duty once more. She gestured toward the doors. Come, if you walk beside me, they will see strength. If you falter, they will see weakness. And weakness they will not forgive. He nodded, his chest heavy, but his steps steady. Together, they walked out of the temple. The morning light struck their faces as the crowd erupted into cheers and shouts. The aliens stamped their feet, their glowing eyes blazing. Some cried blessings, others mocked him, but all accepted what they had seen. The human stood tall, his head high, his jaw locked. He would not give them the sight of fear. The warrior girl walked beside him, her shoulders squared, her pride untouchable. To the crowd, they looked like a pair bound by destiny. But inside, both carried different storms. She was bound by law, he by mistake. She carried honor, he carried defiance. As the noise of the crowd washed over them, the human felt the spark in his chest burn brighter. This was not the end. The mistranslation had chained him, but it had also given him something unexpected. A place inside their world, a bond he had never asked for, and a chance to turn their law against them. The warrior glanced at him from the corner of her eye, her face unreadable, but her silence said enough. She had begun to see him differently, not just as a fool caught in her people's law, but as someone dangerous, someone who might change everything if given the chance. The human tightened his fists, his mind set. He would not let a broken device decide his fate. The queen thought she had trapped him. The crowd thought he was bound forever. Even the warrior believed the chain could not be broken. But deep inside, he knew one truth. He would fight, not with weapons, not with violence, but with his will. And one day, they would all see that the mistranslation was not their victory. It was the beginning of his own.